The first time I stepped back onto the rickety planks of Port Haven's old dock, the smell of salt and weathered rope hit me like a punch I hadn't braced for 30 years away, and it still felt like I was 12, trailing my dad as he hauled crab traps from the gray-green water. I just retired from an AV, spent 2 decades riding waves and staring down storms, and all I wanted was to come home, breathe the briny air, and resurrect my dad's crab stand, Tom's Tidewater Catch, now Tom and Son Crabs. I wasn't chasing trouble, just a quiet life, a little redemption, maybe a chance to make my old man proud, wherever he was watching from after the cancer took him. But trouble found me anyway, in the form of Diane Kessler, the HOA queen of Port Haven, a gated coastal enclave where retirees and weekend yacht owners played at being salty. Diane was all pressed khakis and fake smiles, the kind of woman who'd fine you for a crooked mailbox or a lawn 2 shades too wild. I'd heard about her before I even set up shop. Locals whispered her name like she was a storm warning. Me? I just wanted to sell crabs, keep it simple, a chalkboard sign, a cooler of Blue Claws on ice, the hum of the tide under my boots. No music, no neon, just me, a knife, and the gulls squawking overhead. Then came the first letter, taped to my stand in a plastic sleeve like it was evidence in a crime scene. This structure violates Port Haven HOA Code 4.2b. Cease commercial activity immediately. Signed, Diane Kessler, President. I laugh it off me dock, my family's dock, built by my dad's hands in '62, before this HOA even existed. I figure it was a mix-up, crumpled the paper, and kept cracking shells. Big mistake. 3 days later, Diane showed up, heels clacking like gunfire on the planks. "You're running a business," she snapped. No hello, no nothing, her nose wrinkling at the fishy air. Same old my dad ran for 30 years. I shot back, not looking up for my crabs. "This is HOA land now," she said, "and we don't allow seafood shacks stinking up our community." I leaned on my cooler, knife still in hand, and stared her down. "This dock's on private land, deeded to my family before your HOA," was a twinkle in some developer's eye. Her lips pursed so tight, I thought they'd crack. "Prove it," she said, "or I'm filing a violation report." "You're done here, Mr. Callahan." She spun and marched off, her cardigan flapping like a flag of war. That night, I sat on the dock, the water glinting under the marina lights, and felt something heavy settle in my chest, not just anger, but a kind of betrayal, like Diane was trying to erase my dad's name from the wood we'd nailed together. The next morning, the air was too still, like the calm before squall. I opened the stand, laid out fresh crabs, and propped up my sign when Diane came back, this time with backup 2 HOA goons. One an old guy in a polo who looked like he'd rather be golfing, the other a young suit named Greg, clutching a folder like it held state secrets. "Mr. Callahan," Diane said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "this is your second notice. No commercial activity without board approval. You're unapproved." I crossed my arms. "This is my dock, private property." Greg piped up, reading from his script. "HOA jurisdiction includes a 25-foot shoreline easement. Your dock's in it." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's for mowing grass, not stealing docks. You think my crab traps are part of your flower beds?" Diane's smile was venom. "It's $300 a day if you don't shut down. And we've had complaint smells, gulls, unsafe food." "From who?" I asked. "Confidential," she said, and slid a notice onto my cooler like she was serving a death sentence. They walked off, but the damage was done. By noon, my regulars didn't show. Old Mrs. Harper, who used to buy a dozen every Friday, waved from her porch, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Diane said we could get sick from your crabs. She mumbled later, "Guilty." "Liable," she said. "Liable?" The word burned like bad whiskey. My dad's crabs were cleaner than her starched linens. But Diane wasn't fighting with facts, she was fighting with fear, whispering lies to neighbors, turning my stand into a pariah. I sat on the dock that night, a crab trap between my knees, and felt the weight of it, not just the stand, but my dad's name, his legacy, everything I come back to save. I wasn't about to fold, so I dug in. Found my dad's old storage box, full of receipts, photos, and there, in a salt-stained folder, the 1962 deed to our dock, stamped and notarized, clear as day. I called the county land office, got a clerk named Sarah who sounded bored until I mentioned the HOA. "They're claiming your private dock," she said, almost laughing. "Send me the deed. They've got no leg to stand on." I did, and she confirmed it. My parcel was exempt from HOA control, predating their whole setup. Armed with that, I put up a camera under the shack's eaves, slapped a private property under surveillance sign on the stand, and kept selling. Diane didn't like that. A week later, a certified letter arrived, cease and desist, $1,500 in fines, threats of liens, and a photo of me showing a kid a crab, captioned unsanitary conduct. I was livid, not just at the lies, but at the audacity dragging a kid into her vendetta. I called City Hall, got transferred to a guy named Mike Torres, a legal liaison who didn't mince words. "This is harassment," he said when I showed him the photo. "Bring everything, deed, letters, proof. We'll open a case." I did, and when I drove to the office, I saw Diane on the marina path, mid-lecture to some poor mom with a stroller. She froze when she saw my truck, and I just smiled slow, deliberate, the kind of smile that says, "You're not ready for what's coming." Then my stand got hit. Someone tore down my sign, tipped over my cooler, pried open the bait locker. No note, but I knew who sent the message. I didn't call the cops, just cleaned up, hosed the planks, and put up a news sign. "Tom and Son Crabs since '62, still here." But the whispers got louder. Neighbors avoided me. Kids stopped biking by. Even the guy at the general store gave me tight-lipped nods instead of his usual grin. Diane's real weapon wasn't fine-sit, was isolation, making good people too scared to stand up. I kept digging, spent nights poring over county records, found a 1978 HOA filing that listed my dock as exempt, a legacy parcel they couldn't touch. Then came the HOA's quarterly meeting flyer mandatory, clubhouse, 6 p.m. My stage. I printed everything, the deed, zoning maps, that 78 exemption, even a photo of my dad in 75, grinning with a crab trap on this very dock. I walked into that meeting in my Navy dress, whites not to show off, but to remind them who I was, who my dad was. The room was packed, Diane up front with her board, all smug authority. She got to unauthorized commercial activity on the agenda, didn't say my name, but every head turned to me. "Mr. Callahan," she said, voice like syrup, "care to respond?" I stood, slow and steady, and laid out my papers. "This is the deed to my dock, 1962, before your HOA existed. This is the county zoning map, showing my parcel's private. And this," I held up the 78 filing, "says my dock's exempt from your rules. You don't own it, you don't control it, and you've got no right to fine me or slander my name." The room went dead quiet. Then someone clapped Mrs. Harper, of all people, then another and another. Diane's face went from smug to gray, her hands gripping her papers like they could save her. She didn't speak again that night. The next day, customers came back. Mrs. Harper bought a dozen, slipped me an extra 10, said, "I should have stood by you sooner." But Diane wasn't done. A week later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up, Diane trailing like a vulture in a blazer. The deputy, a kid named Ryan, looked uneasy. "You John Callahan?" he asked. Before I could answer, Diane jumped in. "He's running an illegal business, threatening the community." I handed Ryan the deed and the 78 filing. He read them, brow furrowed, then turned to Diane. "Ma'am, this is private land. I've got no jurisdiction here." Her jaw locked so tight, I thought her pearls would pop. "So you're doing nothing?" she hissed. Ryan shrugged. "Take it to court, but I wouldn't." She stormed off, and I offered him some crabs. He laughed, waved me off, and drove away. That was the crack in her armor. Word spread Diane called the cops, and the cops backed the crab guy. Neighbors started showing up again, some with winks, some with screw the HOA grins. But Diane doubled down, sent a lawsuit threat trespassing, slander, the works. I filed it in my shoebox and kept going. Then came the second city hearing, bigger this time, TV crews and all. Diane was called to speak. She stood, shaky, said she was just protecting harmony. Then Mrs. Harper stood up. "I never complained about John's crabs, but I did complain about your fines for my wind chimes." The room erupted, people shouting about dog bans, chalk drawings, you name it. Diane snapped, pointed at me, screamed I'd staged it all, called me a crab-peddling messiah. She threw her papers, mascara streaking, and stormed out. She resigned the next day, buried in a one-line HOA bulletin. I didn't gloat, just kept the stand open, turned it into something more. With help from neighbors, we added a canopy, a mural of a giant crab with "Welcome Home" painted across it. We started crab boils, open to all, pay what you can, bring a chair. Kids ran the planks, guitars strummed, lanterns glowed. The dock wasn't just mine, Anna Maria, it was Port Haven's. A woman named Lena, fighting her own HOA over wildflowers, came to me for advice. I gave her my documents, told her, "This dock's for anyone who's got a fight worth winning." But here's the thing, Diane's gone, but her kind isn't. There's always another rule book, another clipboard, another someone who thinks they own your piece of the world. I'm still the crab guy, 3 days a week, serving claws and stories. The dock's alive now, with music, laughter, kids painting waves on the planks. My dad's name is still carved in every nail, and I feel him every time the tide rolls in. What do you think? When do you fight, and when do you let go? Drop a comment. Tell me about your Karen, your dock, your stand. Because trust me, we've all got one.